Since Michael and Sarah are coming back for the birth of their child, you need to leave, my mother-in-law said coldly. Her eldest son and his wife were arriving in 3 days. Me? I have to leave? I asked, feeling both confused and shocked. Yes, we don't need you here anymore. You've been unnecessary for a while now. Michael and his family will be living here, so make sure you're out by tomorrow, she continued. I had always known I wasn't fully accepted as part of the family. From the day I got married, I was merely tolerated as a wife. I never imagined that after all these years, they would actually tell me to leave. You barren failure. You were given the chance to raise a child. You should be grateful. We have no obligation to support you anymore. It seems Simon is tired of you too. What? Simon too? I asked, swallowing hard. If this wasn't just a scheme between my mother-in-law and Michael, then I had no reason to hold back with my husband anymore. My mother-in-law might have sparked this foolish decision to drive me out, but it wasn't my concern what happened to the house now. They would have to face the consequences of their actions on their own. I'm Anna Thompson, 45 years old, residing with my husband Simon and mother-in-law in a bustling neighborhood near the station, offering excellent access to the city center. When we searched for a house, Simon, newly promoted to a managerial position, was quite discerning. Despite the steep rent, the ample space and number of rooms justified the expense. Simon, 8 years my senior and a divorcee, entered my life through a friend's introduction. His comforting kindness, typical of older men, reassured me, and after 2 years of dating, we tied the knot. Even after disclosing my infertility due to past illness, Simon's affection for me remained steadfast. Likewise, my feelings didn't waver upon learning about his circumstances, particularly that he had a son named Michael from his previous marriage. I apologize for asking you, who've never been married before, to live with my parents and son. I won't let you suffer in any other way. I'll ensure your happiness, he promised. To prevent any sense of suffocation, Simon suggested moving to a spacious apartment where I could have my own room. Michael will turn 10 this year, and with my mom here, he won't need much care. Don't feel pressured. Following his divorce, Simon's parents had been assisting with childcare at their home. Several years later, Simon's father tragically passed away, leaving Michael's care largely in his mother's hands. During our initial encounters, Michael avoided making eye contact with me. I attributed it to his shyness and the challenges of his age, so I didn't dwell on it. As long as I was accepted as part of the household, I was content. My mother-in-law, a reserved and refined woman, treated me with great politeness when I formally introduced myself after our engagement. I anticipated we would get along well under the same roof. I'll continue preparing meals as usual. Simon often comes home late, so it's fine if we eat at different times, right, Anna? I'll leave the cleaning and laundry to you. All right, let's work well together. After we married, I switched from being a full-time employee at the pharmacy to a full-time part-timer due to our division of household chores. Starting work later in the morning meant I wouldn't get home until nearly 8 p.m., yet dinner was always ready when I arrived. This consistency made me feel good about our living arrangement. My mother-in-law and Michael usually ate dinner before my arrival, leaving me to dine alone. Despite being married, sometimes I couldn't shake the feeling of, is this it? Eventually, I accepted it as our family's routine. However, from the outset, my mother-in-law never warmed to me and never considered me part of the family. Michael, isn't the school's activity day before summer break? When is it? We should all go and support you. Sometime after we married, I attempted to connect with Michael, who still seemed distant. No, Michael hesitated, and my mother-in-law interjected. We'll go, just Simon and I, Anna. You needn't worry about it. I misinterpreted her words, thinking she was simply being considerate. I can take the day off work. Let's all go together. You don't need that. You're Simon's wife, and Michael's family has always been just Simon and me. I was taken aback. No, more than that. When I raised it with Simon that night, he said, Mom's been holding on to Michael. She probably thinks you're trying to take him away. I'll talk to her. Eventually, I started attending Michael's school events as a mother figure, but outside of those occasions, Michael and I rarely spent time together. There were moments when I sensed Michael wanted to say something, but my mother-in-law always intervened. Later, I discovered she had been speaking ill of me to Michael. Anna said she'd be happier with Simon if Michael wasn't around. She's a horrible person. Dad must be blind to her. For a boy in his formative years, hearing such things could understandably breed distrust. It was a disheartening revelation, as I hadn't imagined my mother-in-law capable of such behavior. After high school, Michael promptly moved in with his girlfriend and left home. He married her quietly a year into college. Once Michael moved out, my mother-in-law surprisingly stopped doing household chores altogether. Instead, it seemed tormenting me had become her main amusement. She quit cooking, a task she once handled, now simply waiting at the dining table for my return. Without a moment's respite, I stood in the kitchen preparing dinner. "You're really inefficient. At this rate, it'll take you all night." Cooking was never my forte, largely because I have relied on my mother-in-law for meals. Whenever I did attempt to cook, she would taste each dish and inevitably criticize. "This tastes awful." "I'm sorry. I'm trying my best." "You have a terrible sense of flavor, Anna. It's a good thing Michael never had to eat this." How disappointing. If she found it so distasteful, she could have made it herself, but it seemed she preferred to complain to me. Not just about meals, but about everything from the cleaning, which I had never done before, to the laundry. "Why are there so many wrinkles in the laundry? You need to vacuum every nook and cranny. You really can't do anything right. Didn't your family teach you anything?" With each remark, my mother-in-law sighed while scrutinizing me. Being constantly belittled, even about my family, left me frustrated and clenching my fists. "I don't know how you won over Simon, but I can't see much charm in you as a woman." And she always ended with the same line, "If you hadn't come, Michael would never have left." I understood that her heart had ached since Michael's departure. Perhaps it was what they call empty nest syndrome. If taking it out on me made her feel better, I reasoned it was something I could endure. But her hostility intensified after a particular event. The pregnancy announcement from Michael's wife, Sarah. The joy my mother-in-law displayed was unlike anything I had witnessed before. "It's Michael's baby. It's bound to be adorable." "Yeah, it'll be my first grandchild." Watching their joy, I felt happy too, but my mother-in-law's excitement seemed unusually intense. It stemmed from Michael's request. "Grandma, can Sarah have our baby at your place?" Sarah's family lived an hour away by plane, and with no one else nearby for support, they turned to us. Naturally, my mother-in-law couldn't refuse Michael's plea. As Michael's calls grew more frequent, her enthusiasm soared. The day after the news, she threw herself into preparations, cleaning Michael's room, arranging bedding, and compiling a list of baby essentials. It was like she had caught great-grandchild fever, and I was inevitably drawn in. "When you get back from work, Anna, I've vacuumed Michael's room. You need to mop and wax the floors and clean the windows. We're going shopping this weekend for baby cribs." Cleaning and waxing late into the night after a full day's work was exhausting. Any attempt to cut corners meant redoing the task to her standards. Additionally, she began requesting money, and soon the house was overflowing with baby supplies. "Anna, tomorrow I need you to withdraw some money. There are things I want to get ready for the baby again. Isn't it wasteful to prepare so much when Sarah and Michael haven't even arrived? Shouldn't we wait and choose together with them?" I had been willing to accommodate my mother-in-law's requests, but I was concerned about the excessive spending. "How can you be so indifferent? This is Simon's grandchild." "Oh, that's right. You're not related to Michael by blood. You don't care, do you?" "That's not true. Please don't say that. I just thought Sarah might want to pick things out herself. Wouldn't you want to choose things for your own child?" My valid point seemed to provoke my mother-in-law, who gave me a sharp glare. I realized I might have crossed the line, but it was too late. Without a word, she retreated to her room looking upset. I regretted my words, but I also felt hurt by her comments about Michael. The next morning, my mother-in-law remained in her room, possibly still upset. Simon, starting a 3-day business trip that day, simply called out to her through the closed door, "I'm leaving." Please don't dampen Mom's excitement about her great-grandchild. She hasn't been the same since Michael left. I understand your concern. I did worry, but if we continued spending like this, we might not have enough left when Michael and Sarah arrived. Simon's expression immediately soured. "Are you saying my earnings aren't enough?" he retorted sharply. "That's not what I meant at all," I replied calmly. Simon muttered fine in dissatisfaction and left abruptly. Conversations about money always seemed to end this way. As the one managing our finances, I couldn't help but worry about our future. There was a reason for my concern. We had been married for 13 years, and Simon had provided me with a comfortable life. "Your part-time income is for your enjoyment," Simon had always assured me. Consequently, I saved everything beyond my personal needs, considering it our shared property. However, Simon's company had faced declining performance over the past 5 years, leading to a significant drop in his salary. There were even concerns about the company's stability until his retirement. Despite this, Simon hesitated to change jobs, unwilling to relinquish his department head position for appearance's sake, especially in front of my mother-in-law. To save Simon's face, we kept this financial strain hidden from her. I paid the rent, and he covered our living expenses. That evening, I left work early to apologize to my mother-in-law. When I arrived home, she was already seated at the dining table, waiting for me. "I'm sorry about yesterday. I went too far," I apologized, hoping to mend things, but my mother-in-law didn't acknowledge my apology. Instead, she blindsided me with a demand. "Since Michael and Sarah are coming back for a hometown childbirth, please get out," she stated in a chilly voice. Their return was scheduled in just 3 days. "Me? I have to leave?" I asked, bewildered and stunned. "Yes, we don't need another mother figure anymore. You've been redundant for a while now. Michael and his family will be living here, so make sure you're out by tomorrow," she continued, her tone uncompromising. I realized then that I had never truly been accepted as part of the family. Since the day I married Simon, I had been treated merely as his wife. Perhaps I should have sensed something was wrong when Michael's return was announced for the birth. "You barren failure. You were lucky to experience raising a child. You should be grateful. We have no obligation to support you anymore. It seems like Simon is tired of you too." "What? Simon too?" "Yes, maybe he's found someone else by now," she sneered. I swallowed hard, feeling a wave of disbelief and hurt. Could this really be happening? Lately, my relationship with Simon had grown strained. Was it possible I had been blind to a betrayal brewing under my nose? I recalled that until a year ago, Simon had never gone on overnight business trips. "All right, I'll eat out tonight," I declared, grabbing my bag and stepping out of the house, feeling the need to calm my severely shaken heart and worries about my husband. As I walked, I attempted to call him several times, despite my mother-in-law's unsettling words, but he didn't pick up. Finally, I called his office and learned he had taken a few days off. Her accusations started to feel more plausible. Was he really away with another woman? Dark thoughts clouded my mind, and I found myself overwhelmed with emotion, tears streaming down my face. Stumbling along, I noticed the tavern near the station, a place we used to frequent when we first moved here. "It's still here," I murmured to myself as I entered. "Welcome." The tavern owner's expression briefly clouded upon seeing me, then he nodded in recognition. Did he remember me? "Hey, long time no see. It's been about 8 years. My husband and I used to come here often." "Yes, it's been a while. I remember you." I couldn't help but smile, feeling a sense of comfort wash over me. "Could I get a beer and a mixed plate of grilled chicken, please?" "Of course." As I sat in the tavern, the owner's quiet demeanor hadn't changed. I took out my cell phone and the screen lit up, displaying a photo of us celebrating Michael's 18th birthday, both of us looking sharp in the suit we had chosen together. I longed for a closer family bond. Lost in thought, a waitress appeared with my beer and grilled chicken. The cold beer washed away some of the day's fatigue, making me wonder if I could really move out the next day. I quickly found a moving company available for the job and saved details of junk buyers as well. Changing my phone's screensaver oddly cleared my mind. The beer and grilled chicken tasted surprisingly good. I decided to sort through everything once I got home. As I left the tavern, I heard someone calling after me. Turning around, a young waitress from the tavern hurried toward me. "Excuse me, are you Mrs. Thompson? I noticed the screensaver on your phone." "Yes, that's me," I replied, surprised by the unexpected interaction. "Your husband, he's having an affair with one of our staff members." Her youthful sense of justice was evident, so that was the look on the owner's face. My husband had been meeting with a longtime part-time female worker at the tavern, chatting the entire time and leaving together after closing when the place was quiet. It was disheartening and surreal. Despite the situation, I couldn't help but smile at her candidness. We exchanged contact information. "I'll keep you updated if anything changes," she offered, providing a glimmer of support in my isolated state. My mother-in-law's words rang true. Perhaps because my mind was clearer, instead of sadness, I felt a rising anger within me. Might as well go all out and finish this. I had booked an appointment with one of the moving companies I had saved earlier. If it wasn't just a conspiracy between my mother-in-law and Michael, then I no longer felt the need to honor my husband. I found it foolish to be driven out, but it was my mother-in-law who had ignited this situation. Whatever became of the house now was no longer my concern. When I arrived home, I packed my belongings relentlessly until midnight. There was no hesitation. The moving company I had scheduled for exactly 2:00 p.m. arrived promptly. As we discussed, I'm moving out today. The movers are here, so I'll be taking everything I purchased myself. I wish you could erase every trace that you were here. Granting her wish, I emptied the house of all the furniture and appliances I had bought with my part-time job earnings, beyond the rent and basic living expenses. As I watched my possessions being loaded onto the truck, my mother-in-law started to panic. Wait, Anna, what are you doing? If you take all this, how will we live? To leave no trace behind, I'm taking everything I purchased. You can start anew tomorrow. Suppressing a chuckle, I disregarded her protests and had everything removed. She argued vehemently with the movers, but there was nothing she could do. All that remained in the house were piles of baby items and her old dresser from before our marriage. Well then, I bid you farewell, I said calmly, leaving her stunned at the table as I placed the keys down and exited the room. The movers held onto my belongings temporarily, and I decided to stay with a single collie for a while. That night, I slept soundly, feeling a sense of closure. It was a week later when I finally heard from my husband. I couldn't help but wonder if he was scheming with that other woman. While my husband was dragging his feet, I received a call from the young woman at the tavern. I got a good shot, so I'll send it to you, she said. The photo she sent showed my husband engaged in conversation with another woman at the tavern, not much younger than him. Perhaps out of a sense of justice, the young woman had followed them after closing. There was also a picture of the two entering a hotel. Even in such circumstances, the cheating continued. Any remaining affection I had for my husband dissipated completely. I asked for the woman's name and arranged to have her address looked up the next day. After gathering all the evidence of the affair, my husband called. Anna, where are you? Michael and his family are here. Aren't you coming home soon? No, I'm not coming back. Your mother told me to leave. I'm done here. Michael and his family can live with you now, right? I knew it. Michael and his family were out of money and looking to move in with us. I heard they've been hopping from job to job since graduating from vocational school, and now they're working part-time. No, I want you back, Anna. I went to the pharmacy, and they said you're taking some time off. Do you have a place to stay? Yeah, I'm fine. Your mom and Michael never liked me, did they? I bet they're thrilled to have the place to themselves now that I'm gone. My sarcastic remark left my husband speechless. He knew his mother and Michael never accepted me as family but chose to ignore it. Well, okay, there's something I need to discuss. I'll come back there once. It's for the sake of my future. I need to bring closure to this chapter. My husband replied with a relieved tone. Days later, I returned to the house for the first time in a long while. There were new pieces of furniture and appliances inside. When Michael and Sarah saw me, they nodded from their seats on the sofa without standing up. As I took a seat, my mother-in-law glared at me with a fierce expression. The atmosphere was tense. Just as I prepared to finish up and leave quickly, Michael spoke up. What are you doing here? You took everything from the house. What kind of monster does that? Dad's been supporting you, and you've had it easy. I sighed. I took everything because I paid for it. I wanted to erase all traces of me, just as you wanted, right? But that's crazy, isn't it? There's no way you could afford all that just working part-time at the pharmacy. My husband still hadn't discussed this with his mother. When I glanced at him, he began speaking as if resigned to the situation. We've been getting by on what Anna and I both earned for a while now. Then the things you took should be yours as well. Instead of my speechless husband, I decided to clarify. Simon's company has been struggling, and his salary has dropped. For the past 5 years, I've been covering what's been lacking. But even that wasn't enough. And now I'm paying our rent. My mother-in-law looked at my husband in surprise. I'm not just a part-time worker. I'm a pharmacist, and the pay is quite good. I'm earning more than Simon now. At my words, my husband awkwardly glanced away. My mother-in-law's eyes darted between my husband and me in confusion. From now on, Michael, you'll be paying the rent. You're planning to stay here, right? After all the support Grandma has given, it's time for you to step up. Michael looked at me with a stunned expression when I dropped the bombshell. Rent? How much is it? It's $5,600. Good luck. Since it seems my role as a mother figure is over, I'm not obligated to support you anymore. Get it together. You're about to become a father. Michael muttered in disbelief, shaking his head. That's impossible. It was Sarah who spoke up next upon hearing the amount. Wait, $5,600? Weren't we supposed to stay here rent-free and cover living expenses? I quit my job, and Michael, you only make $3,000 a month. What are we going to do? I almost chuckled. Don't worry, Sarah. You can find a more affordable place. Simon still makes a decent salary. Sarah visibly relaxed upon hearing this. Oh, and since I'll be leaving, Simon, things might get tough for you with your new girlfriend, right? At that, Sarah burst into tears. It was my husband who panicked. What? What are you talking about? Oh, your mother told me about the new woman. I suppose it's time to end my role as your wife, too. That's got to be a lie from Mom. You're the only one for me. He must have thought there was no evidence. After all, it hadn't even been 10 days since I left the house. Wouldn't that hurt Mary if she heard you? Well, I'll get in touch about that later. At the mention of Mary's name, my husband jolted, realizing that I knew everything. He held his head and sighed. This wasn't the right atmosphere to discuss divorce. Well then, I'll be leaving now. Let's continue this through our lawyers. Neither Simon nor Michael said another word as I grabbed my bag and stood up. Simultaneously, my mother-in-law rose from her seat, slamming her hands on the table. What the hell? It's all your fault our home is falling apart. Instantly irritated, I retorted, you were the one who told me to leave. You're the one who claimed Simon had another woman and meddled in my relationship with Michael. It's all on you. Heat surged through me. I regretted not asserting myself more with Michael, holding back because of my mother-in-law. Michael has nothing to do with this. It's time for you to take responsibility. Simon is going through a rough patch. As his wife, you should support him. That's what family does. Her words bewildered me. If she hadn't summoned Michael home, if she hadn't insinuated about Simon's affair, I would still be supporting Simon and this household. I always believed in and stood by Simon. But now there's no turning back. Gazing firmly into my mother-in-law's eyes, I stated, I never truly felt accepted as part of this family from the beginning, so I cannot take responsibility as a family member. After leaving my mother-in-law trembling in the room, Simon surprisingly agreed to the divorce without much resistance. It seemed my resolve and the evidence of his affair left him little room to argue. Shortly after, they began the process of moving out of the apartment. Michael and Sarah returned to their own place, opting not to live with my mother-in-law. Simon, on the other hand, seemed to be contemplating remarriage, but Mary was evidently upset about the alimony and his suggestion that she live with his mother. Rumor had it they were considering placing my mother-in-law in a care facility. It was sad to think they were ready to abandon her after all the love she had poured into her son and grandson. Perhaps she'd have fulfilled her role in their lives. If my mother-in-law hadn't intervened back then, if Michael and Sarah's return had been just for childbirth, perhaps we could have remained together. Despite the divorce, Michael eventually sent me an apology letter. He expressed regret for not being more open with me as a child, influenced by his grandmother's disapproval, and mentioned how much it meant to him when I attended his school events. Reflecting now, maybe I should have reached out more, tried harder to bridge the gap between us. Perhaps then, our relationship could have evolved differently. Even though our paths have diverged, I silently wish for Michael's happiness in life. Returning to my work as a pharmacist, I swiftly secured an apartment near my workplace. Feeling uneasy about keeping the furniture and appliances I had taken from the house, I arranged for them to be picked up and disposed of by a junk removal service. Life without the constant harassment from my mother-in-law is now peaceful and comfortable. For the time being, I intend to focus on my own happiness rather than anyone else's.